Actually unbelievable. I just don't even know where to start from here going forward with the video. But the feature man turns out to have a very dark past, lurking behind his online persona. And this history dates back to the 1970s, with the feature man actually doing some unbelievable things that I don't think most people would ever want to hear, let alone even think about. So everyone's favorite innocent old grandpa on YouTube ended up being convicted in a court trial. And the feature man was going to be featuring the rest of his life behind bars. I wonder why. In fact, he had 3 sentences for life in prison. So he had spent 3 lifetimes in a cell over what he did. Now, this isn't to defamate character or anything like this, but this is in order to inform you people on what's going on and everything that we all know. Even if he wasn't put behind bars exactly, the fact is that he's even being tied to anything that could put him to jail in life is just suspect in of itself. And so this guy would go to court for committing the infamous crime against nature. And this would be him having sexual contact with someone who wasn't a man or a woman. Again, the fact that he's being tied to something like this is a huge red flag, and this has happened on 3 occasions. Literally, he would violate the infamous crime against nature 3 times. And we do have a lot of information here. So, in November of 1973, while playing in a musical group, volunteered to entertain the children at Child Haven in Las Vegas. Child Haven. This is a place where people would temporarily take care of children who could not be with their parents. So, if it couldn't get any more fucked and disgusting than it already was, boy oh boy, does it get fucking worse. This is definitely premeditated. If this guy wasn't already more of a fucking freak than it already seemed, he would volunteer at Child Haven, and this is where he would take the opportunity to prey on children. With his first offense being with a little boy when he tried to introduce the child to guitar. And right after this, that's when he would start doing his terrible, disgusting acts on a child. Next, he would go to the Eddie Lee Home for Boys in Clark County, and he would meet another minor child who would testify that Thomas Willett, otherwise known as Feature Man, was helping the children set up for Christmas, and in that instant, while trying to set up for fucking Santa Claus coming to their goddamn house, he would assault another child orally. Can we all just take in how horrifying this is? You're literally a child preparing for Christmas, and a whole adult just forces themselves onto you. I think there's a pattern you can definitely take in when it comes to both victims of this sick fuck, right? Both of them were in homes for boys, and each instance of sexual contact is the same. Is this a coincidence? Definitely not. I don't even think I should be able to even read or come up with all this information to begin with. So after being involved in sexual offenses involving 15-year-old boys, the federal court would review the infamous crime of nature statute to be used against him for his conduct. So how exactly did Feature Man get out of this situation? From what I'm understanding, he was able to say that he was not doing anything illegal. So we do know that he did do these things to these young boys, but it wasn't illegal according to what was defined as the infamous crime against nature during the 1970s. And so, because of the 1970s and their specific guideline as to what the infamous crime against nature was, to be honest, even I'm having trouble trying to find NRS 201.190, at least for the 1970s version of it, but it probably read something like this. Whoever commits the abominable and detestable crime against nature, either with mankind or with a beast, shall be punished by imprisonment in the state prison for not more than 20 years. Now, for specificity's sake, Feature Man likes to point a finger and take a jab at the 1970s version of NRS 201.190 Yet he can remember that number like the back of his fucking hand, even when you want to take into account that when you get older, the mind goes. I find that very funny, and the very fact that he's going to say that back in the day, 201.190 was vague. But yet when he's describing his story, he's pretty vague as to what the fuck happened by not mentioning that he was able to force himself onto a 14-year-old. Yeah, the guy's gonna mention that an 18-year-old was finally up at the stands against him, but this didn't happen until the 14-year-old that he fucking abused got older. And now for one of the most basic of understandings, because I am definitely the furthest guy that should be talking about this, but I'm going to help spread the word so people know exactly what kind of shit is out here and what kind of information about featureman is available. I don't know why, but for the life of me, it seems like everyone is too afraid to talk about this. Not to defamate this guy's character, because Lord knows what kind of fucking lawful bullshit could justifiably get me in trouble. Yet still let a guy like this walk away is beyond me, but I'm just going to use the information that is real and the facts that are presented. A Las Vegas man charged with sex offenses involving 15-year-old boys asked the federal court Tuesday to review the state infamous crime against nature statute because the man claims his conduct in allegedly committing the sex offenses is not defined as illegal. So we do know that he did these sex offenses, but it was, for his argument's sake, legal. And at the time, the infamous crime against nature was stated to be, in his words, vague. And I guess that was a solid enough argument. With that being said, the jury did end up finding featureman, or Thomas Willett, guilty of the crime. So essentially, because at the time, featureman was able to challenge the vagueness of the infamous act against nature, he could warp an argument into his favor because he may have done these disgusting acts with children, but it wouldn't be deemed illegal. And in the video, featureman thinks he's a free man, and he thinks that he's perfectly fine and right in finding this inconsistency, but that doesn't change the fact that you're a disgusting, sick fuck. You may have gotten out then, but times have changed. You may have avoided a cell, but there are other ways in which humans can repent. Because no matter what, the truth will and always does come to light. In these situations, most criminals would be ignorant as to what they could do in order to challenge the judge, and so because the featureman used a writ. Now, because he did this, he would have to then go to the Supreme Court because this judge would have to give him to another court so that they can challenge him on their basis. Basically saying, we need a more powerful judge. And so, if the judge would have deemed featureman as guilty, he would have been taken to another court so that they could dig into the finer details and truly give him what he deserves. However, because he was able to do this writ, this would have made everyone else, the thousands of other criminals that were put on probation inside of the current jail, would have been able to have the potential to also challenge the judge's authorities, and then this would have them go through the entire process all over again. Because if featureman was able to challenge the judge, everyone else that was put under probation would be able to do the same. And so, in order to prevent thousands of other scumbags out of their cells, they let this sick fuck walk away. Honestly, they had to. Logically, it was the right call, but I just can't stand the fact that he can do this to a fucking child and leave them to live with that shit for the rest of their life. No, lives, because he did this to multiple children. And what pisses me off more than anything is the very fact that this guy thinks he's so justified, so right, just because he figured out one simple inconsistency. I will say, this guy really found a way to wiggle out of a prison cell. The only reason why this guy is walking is so that thousands of other criminals are not also walking. Featureman or Thomas Willett did what he did, and he knows exactly what he did. just because you're out of prison doesn't necessarily mean that you're safe. Just because you can play along with the law doesn't mean anything you did was justified or not morally wrong. And I don't have to be an expert to see any of that shit. There are things out there worse than a prison cell. And there are things out there worse than the law. And I'll tell you one thing, everyone, whether we know it or not, ends up paying the price. If you ask me, the guy caught a lucky break and that's that. But he's still a disgusting child no matter how much you want to twist it or paint a different picture. Which is why he doesn't go into the exact details in his own video. In Featureman's video, he tells us exactly everything what we need to know. But to be honest, it just comes across as, ha, I beat the case. That's how it happened. There we go. You have nothing to complain about. And it just blows my mind how people are actually defending this and they're just fine. They're settling on the idea that this guy has spent 50 years, if not more, and changed. But to be honest, really, does anyone actually think that this is something you can walk away from? Let's think about the victims, man. Imagine being that child waking up 20 years later as an adult, seeing that same event on Christmas Day or at the movies or while trying to take guitar lessons, having an older man tell you to pull your pants down. You don't know what is happening and something just happens. Something that you definitely did not expect from an adult you trusted. Thomas Willett was in a position where he could freely access multiple young boys. He had the authority to take young boys out of juvenile homes and take them to his house for quote-unquote piano lessons. Can we just take a moment to just process or think about that? He was found guilty by jury 3 times. No matter how long ago this happened, that anyone wants to use a defense, no matter how much they want to pretend, someone can turn over a new leaf and yes, they can change their lives for the better. But with some instances and some crimes, that's not always the case because what some people do is just always that bad, that heinous, if not evil completely. Now, these are 3 life sentences. Y'all know why they were life sentences? Because what was done was that bad. You don't get a life sentence for being a fucking Boy Scout. You get that? The leaf can be turned over, but it's not gonna hide the maggots and worms festering from its backside after being in the dirt for so long. Let's just take a look at how asinine some individuals may be. Hollywood is filled with pedos, rapists, and deviants, yet you all draw the line at some old man on YouTube. Are you serious? So, because people in Hollywood do something, that means anybody else can get away with it scot-free? Because others can get away with it, that means everybody can get away with it? This comment is so stupid, it's actually pretty hard to even respond to. Because, for one, Hollywood doesn't have to do with anything that's happening on YouTube. And second of all, did any of those people ever avoid any criminal cases, let alone have a YouTube channel where tons of children are watching? I sincerely doubt it. It doesn't sit right with me at all, having this guy have such a heinous background yet show everyone on the internet such an innocent persona. I'm no judge, I'm no jury, but at the end of the day, I will say all I care about is the well-being of the children. Even those children in the 1970s. Because from then to now, they have suffered the most in this situation.